Good morning. We are live. I'm going to go ahead and bring in a couple of our Facebook groups. I've got Atlanta Falcons fans on All Falcons, and I've got Scott Kennedy Sports. We're going to bring them in real quick. And good morning. This is Forging the Falcons. I'm your host, Scott Kennedy, with my co-host, Nick Kendall. We are coming to you coast to coast. I am in just north of Atlanta, Georgia, in Johns Creek, formerly of Alpharetta. And Nick is all the way over in Seattle, who has generously gotten up at a really early time to join us today. Man, this is a dude that is ready to talk football literally 24/7.
Literally, I think I do it in my sleep too. So I think the wife can attest to that. No, it's this is prepping me for hiking season out here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm a crazy person. I like to be the first person on the trailhead when at all possible. Don't want to deal with parking. Don't want to deal with having to fight people both directions sometimes. So I'll be at the trailhead before the sun's up. So this is an hour and a half, 2 hours later than I'll be getting up here, and some of the weekends coming up. So it's all good. And actually, the sun is starting to come up here. The days are getting really long out here in Seattle.
Yeah, when I've traveled to Seattle and you try and go to bed and it feels like it's about midnight your time and the
Mhm.
sun's still shining through the
Yep.
windows. I'm like, what is going on? It's
Uh,
it's a little strange. The strange thing for you would probably be here in Atlanta. We are on the very edge of the East Coast Central Time Zone, and depending on how the time changes, I still haven't figured out which way it is, but it can get dark at like 4:30.
yeah.
Where especially when I was I was on when I was in college at Auburn, it was right on Central. So in the winter, it was dark at 4:30
Mhm.
because it was only a few miles west. So this is sleeping in for you, so I don't feel so bad. I don't feel so bad.
Yeah.
Well, we got a lot we want to get to. First off, I want to say hello to a couple folks in the chat. Big Al coming in, saying good morning. Nothing better day than starting listening to Scott and Nick. Appreciate it, Big Al. Glad you're joining us. And Falling Sloth is back. Welcome, welcome. Appreciate you being here today. Any questions? We'll get them going. The Facebook folks should start ramping up in here pretty soon. That page, I think it's around 10,000 now. So
Mm.
give it a share and give it likes because Facebook likes to kind of restrict its access. So the more you like and share, the more folks we can bring in and keep the conversation going. Couple things I wanted to get into today. Couple personnel moves, Nick, of some guys I know you're familiar with, either from college and or from AFC West. The Atlanta Falcons signed a new inside linebacker, Nick Kwiatkowski. I looked it up and it says put the emphasis on the cow. So cow is in pow. Kwiatkowski, about 245 pounds. Again, this is following a similar MO that I've seen. This is a third different linebacker that's come in through free agency or the draft for the Falcons after Foye left at about 220 pounds. Each one of these guys is over 240 pounds. Rashaan Evans, Troy Anderson, and now Nick Kwiatkowski. What can you tell us about him, and does he have a chance of being a contributor for the Falcons this year?
He's been a borderline starter for the past few years. Signed a really good contract, actually, 3 free agencies ago with the Las Vegas Raiders, then the Oakland Raiders, I guess. And a reason that did a little bit of work on him is because all the Vic Fangio connections. He was the linebacker under Vic Fangio, and the guy who I believe came in and started when Roquan Smith was dealing with an injury and played pretty well, good enough to get himself a look and get himself a contract with the Raiders. So been a fine player. I mean, obviously, if he's still available, his star has fallen a tad, but still
Which
a
that can be said for most linebackers,
yeah,
except for a couple of the guys like Foye, who signs a huge contract
yeah,
with the Jaguars. But other than
crazy.
that, it feels like linebackers can be had on the cheap.
Yeah, I mean, big, fast, and can cover and tackle is still will always play in the NFL. It's just those kind of guys are exceedingly rare. I know we kind of gave in Broncos country gave George Payton a hard time talking about trying to find. It's harder to find a franchise cornerback than it is a franchise quarterback. Maybe a little bit out of context there, but you get the gist. That
Mhm.
goes true for linebacker as well. I mean, how many actual franchise linebackers are there right now? Uh, Fred Warner, Darius Leonard, Micah Parsons. I wouldn't even say Devin White really, given his struggles in coverage. I mean, so it's tough out there, but also it's not the most impactful position in the world. You can get by with okay players. So
Mhm.
this is Nick Kwiatkowski. Don't think I
It's
nailed it.
Kwiat. I looked it up on on his pro reference page, and it's so messed up that it actually has, or so different from, like Kennedy,
Yeah.
that it actually has a pronunciation guide there, and it's Kwiatkowski.
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 And I believe he also played at West Virginia for college as well. I remember that's where I feel like I watched him and played in that
That's right.
interesting 3-3-5 defense that they run there and out there in Morgantown. So he's been a solid linebacker. I think he's definitely got a chance to start, and I think he is. Like you mentioned here, Falcons are starting to get a little bit bigger, heavier in the pants at the linebacker position, and this to me says in order to play less linebackers, you need a little bit more weight and length at the linebacker position. So that's what it says to me.
Yeah, and you mentioned he played with the Raiders. He was a draft pick of the Chicago Bears. Obviously, if you've been following the Falcons off-season moves for the last 18 months, it seems everybody has come from the Bears. I don't remember his name, but they've got an assistant general manager in the front office now that came from the Bears, and it seems like everybody has a Chicago Bears connection. Mark Turner coming in on YouTube. Welcome, Mark. And he says, worried about the O-line. Yes, as you should be.
Yeah.
There have not been significant upgrades along arguably the worst offensive line in the NFL. That is scary. We're banking on Jalen Mayfield making a big step up at left guard or someone else pushing him. Can Drew Dahlman be that guy? Will he come in and push at center? He was a 4th-round draft pick last year, and I think Mayfield was top of the 3rd last year. And then Caleb McGarry at right tackle is still a problem. So they brought in a couple guys that can provide some competition, but there's nobody there that screams, oh yeah, this has been fixed, or at least on paper where you go, this position's been fixed. So what we're going to do, Mark, and everybody come in, we're going to go through the schedule, because the last time we were here was Wednesday, and the schedule was released last Thursday with some very creative different ways that the teams handled the schedule release, but we haven't seen y'all in time to talk about the schedule. Now, before we get into the schedule, Nick, I want to talk a couple of things. One, I want to preface all of this because I went through the USA Today guys, the Wire crew, the Falcons Wire crew, and they did it. They did a season prediction. It was ambitious, let me say. So let me we'll talk about that too a little bit. I'm not going to put these guys down. They're probably just young. That's all. But we'll go through this, and I want to preface this by saying that the Falcons fell to 31 on the ESPN Power Rankings. So they're 31st out of 32 teams. There's not much farther to fall. I think Houston was probably 32. So when we go through this, and I think Vegas had the Falcons favored in 2 of the 17 games that were on there. So we'll go through the schedule and talk a little bit, and we'll hit them pretty quickly. But before we hit that real quick, good morning, James. He says, good morning, Nick and Scott. We're my Facebook folks. I know you're here watching, so come on in and say hey. Just come on in and say hello. Facebook, I think, has been a little squirrely lately. They like to take your money to build your page and then, donate, and then say, oh, we want more money to actually reach them. And EJ coming in said, good morning, Nick and Scott. Let's talk some football. Real quick before we get into that, PFF came up with a good list of the top 25 players under 25 years old. And they literally meant under 25, not 25 and under, but under 25 at the beginning of the season. The Falcons were one of 5 teams that had 2 players on the list. And then there were 2 teams that had 3 players. The Cowboys and the Buccaneers each had 3 players. Probably shouldn't be real hard for you to figure out who the 2 players that were on the list, Nick.
Yep. No, Terrell and Pitts.
Yeah, pretty simple. Terrell was actually top 10.
Wow.
Which again, I was like, I'm wondering, how far are we gonna have to get down before we find AJ Terrell? We didn't have to go very far, and I thought that was probably about right. Pitts was a little bit farther down. I think for the most part, especially it was PFF doing this, they had AJ Terrell in the top 2 or 3 corners all season long. And I think he's 23 years old, might turn 24 this year, but a building block of a franchise. And Kyle Pitts is still 21. So you're hoping that you can get another young receiver as building blocks with Drake London, who is also a younger guy. Like I said, in the day of holdbacks and double holdbacks, Calvin Ridley graduated at 20 years old. He started his freshman season. He turned 21 his freshman season in Alabama. Kyle Pitts was 20 years old when he started his first game as an Atlanta Falcon and turned 21 his first year as a pro. That matters. You know, when you start seeing these type of things, that matters.
Especially for a position where a lot of players fall off at about age 30. So you have essentially a whole extra contract window for a player like that, which does matter. I mean, Calvin Ridley was good when he played, obviously, solid player, but this Kyle Pitts built different. One of the longest wingspans ever recorded in combine history for a pass catcher, I think, too. So I'm really excited to see what he can do year 2. Hopefully Mariota doesn't hamstring him too much, but I guess you had Matt Ryan last year, who's a arguably better quarterback and still kind of hamstrung because of the offensive line issues. So
I don't think it's a big. I know the Atlanta Falcons fans, and you know, when you've been in one spot for all. Tommy Tuberville once said at Auburn, he goes, "You lose 10% of your support every year, and when your team starts going down, that probably accelerates faster when you're the quarterback." Matt Ryan is by far the most successful quarterback the Atlanta Falcons have ever had, and they've had some pretty good quarterbacks. For as bad as the Falcons have been in a franchise, they've had decent quarterback play through the years. Matt Ryan is a significant upgrade over Marcus Mariota. I don't think that's not a bold statement. Otherwise, the Colts would have gone after Marcus Mariota because they could have.
Follow the value. Yep, 100%. But yeah, good morning to Luke also. Thank you so much, Luke. We appreciate you. Can't tell what his picture is. Actually, it looks like there's like a little blue Pokemon thing in the front there. I don't know. Luke, either way, good to see you.
Yeah, it looks like a couple stuffed animals, but last time I said that, it was like, hey, that's my wife, dude. I'm like, oh, sorry. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. They're literally thumbnails. The pictures that we look at on screen are the size of my pinky nail, and this is on a giant screen, so they are sometimes a little tough to see. James is a little bit easier to see. That Cessna coming in. So hopefully the Falcons will be competitive in most games, at least in most games. And I think they will be. They were last year. You know, that was kind of their MO, was to grind the game down. But I want to get into the schedule. And I said, let me preface this by saying they were 31st on the ESPN Power Rankings. Pro Football Focus just did a tier of quarterbacks, of starting quarterbacks, and they put Marcus Mariota in the last tier of Tier E. Let's not get our hopes up. He's in there with he's in there with Carson Wentz, Mitch Trubisky, and Sam Darnold. These are not starting, regular starting caliber quarterbacks. Though they did give Marcus Mariota a little bit more love. So Mariota remains a consistent starting option, but has not played more than 1,000 snaps in a season since 2017. Trubisky and Darnold are not viable starting options. Those are the players that we're talking about. Now, Nick, you wanted to talk about efficiency at one point. So there's a metric out there that basically says how many games based on your play should you have won, or were realistic that you did win. So the Falcons were 7-10 last year, but they were 7-2 in one. And I always want to say one score games, and that there's a lot of variance in there. So those one bounce here or there can go either way, and it could flip to 2-7. And if they were 2-7 in one score games last year, they would have been 2-15. So their expected wins last year was what? I know you know this because this is the kind of thing that you dig.
Yeah, the Falcons last year were 28th in the league in the statistic. It's called Pythagorean wins. They use the point differential and one score games to determine that. And what did the Falcons finish with? 7 wins?
They were 7-10.
7? The Pythagorean wins had them expected at 4.7 wins, which was bottom 5 in the league last year, only to be outdone by the Giants, the Texans, the Jets, and the Jags. So, that's a Pythagorean wins typically are a pretty good indicator of the year prior. People say, oh, we did this well last year, we're going to be that much better this year. We improved the roster. You might improve the roster, but football can be a real rude son of a gun, and variance can flip it the other way. It's one reason I am lower on the Raiders. Raiders last year, what they win, like 10 games? Their Pythagorean wins was 6.8. That's a team that was crazy point differential. So
they overachieved, which can usually mean you got a couple bounces. You got some luck with injuries.
Good coaching.
Your coaches made better decisions. All good things. Don't get me wrong.
Special
but
teams.
As far as getting better, did the Falcons get better this offseason? Hamstrung by the cap. I love their draft. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Aside from, again, I wasn't a huge proponent of taking a wide receiver at 8. I would have rather have gotten I would have gone Kyle Hamilton 8. So we'll see how that plays out. I will not change my mind if Kyle Hamilton busts and Drake London ends up a multi-time Pro Bowler. I will eat it. I will take it. I don't mind. I'm in the business of making predictions. When you make predictions, you're going to be wrong. But did the roster actually get better this year? Quarterback downgrade. You can make all the argument. You can do all the mental gymnastics in the world that you want to, that Marcus Mariota is a better fit. He's more mobile, blah, blah, blah. Matt Ryan was a 4-time Pro Bowler who carried the team the last 4 years to not being god-awful. Yeah. He's a good NFL quarterback. Marcus Mariota is not. Maybe he can – Arthur Smith can Ryan Tannehill, but right now, Ryan Tannehill him. But right now, that's a downgrade.
Yep, 100%. And that's pretty much all you need to say, right? It's the quarterback one is the big difference there. So maybe the scheme fit will change things a tad. Maybe the running back room will be better. I guess shout out to Mike Davis for having a good year there in Atlanta, but you got a little bit more juice there in that room now. But overall, I would say the roster is fractionally slightly worse. And the big difference is going from Matt Ryan to Marcus Mariota. After that, can the defensive pass rush can't be worse. That's the other one, right? Rush and cover. That's got to be slightly better. So maybe it's close to the same. I think
that will be actually significantly better, to be honest, on the defensive side of the ball, because the pass rush will get better by default. It literally couldn't get worse. It couldn't. It could not, statistically and possibly could not get worse than it was last year.
Yeah.
You're bringing in 2 guys that can come in hot off the edge. And the one true upgrade that I'm absolutely positive about is Casey Hayward at corner is a significant upgrade over Fabian Monroe. That one's done and dusted. Significant upgrade. Where you lost a little bit, are you going to be better at inside linebacker, replacing the NFL's leading tackler? That's a stretch. Foye was pretty good. He got a big contract for a reason. Yeah. Are you going to be better at receiver? Yeah. Russell Gage got a nice contract from the Buccaneers, but the combination of Drake London, Braylon Edwards, Geronimo Allison, who just was signed, those guys they're all big dudes.
Mm-hmm.
They should help you be better at the wide receiver position. The problem is, going back is the offensive line there's no improvement there, and the offensive line was awful last year, just horrendous.
Yeah.
That's a scare. That's a big scare.
Yeah, and you would hope that the draft picks you took last year would have some improvement. Matt Hennessy entering year 3, that's typically a big jumping off point for the center position. And you have Dahlman and Mayfield, who should be better year 2 than year 1 as well as options. Lindstrom's as solid as it gets, probably one of the most underrated players in all of football. If you're asking me, the guard position doesn't get much love, but he's very good. And Matthews is steady Eddie. So I think the offensive line, it might be just slightly better just due to upgrades. And obviously you're one injury away from it completely going into the tank, but should be slightly better. And the other one here is Mariota's athleticism, mobility should help that line a tad as well.
And Make You Fumble says the team better, especially next year, because we will have money. And it's time to start going through the schedule, and we'll come up with a record. Here's the Cliff Notes. I think the team bottoms out this year. 2022, rock bottom. And then they start to rebound. The fact that they were able to cut Matt Ryan's salary, get Julio Jones' numbers off the books, are $60 million right there. The open cap space is going to be over $100 million. You'll have another high round pick. Kyle Pitts, hopefully Drake London hits. Some of these other lower round picks start doing what you were hoping they were going to do. Because right now, and that's a concern for me, Nick, is last year's Falcons draft class is Kyle Pitts and meh. Richie Grant needs to step up. Jalen Mayfield needs to step up, or else this class is not good. And that's concerning when you don't have any free agency money. So hopefully those guys take a big step in year 2, but those are all hopes and dreams. Those aren't realities. But yes, they set this team up nicely for 2023. So let's get into it, Nick. Let's get into 2022 here. Let me bring up the Falcons schedule. And we'll start off. We'll get going here. And again, I don't know Dean Worley and Matt Urban, but I feel like they were very ambitious with their predictions here. So they're at USA Today, and I'm gonna throw in their predictions too. Give them a little shout out and then tabulate them. And I'll do this the same way like we did. Well, it'll be easy to count the wins because I'm not going to have very many.
Yeah. And just to get into it real quick, we have
Yeah.
the year to year. I think it is Warren Sharp does a lot of data analytics for football, and the number one thing that projects strength of schedule. And a lot of teams will look at what the record was last year to kind of, our fans will look at that to kind of understand what the strength of schedule is. But what is far more predictive is what Vegas says a team will be this season. So Vegas, that wasn't built on going broke. Vegas was built on the back of your money that you lost there while betting away your, Friday paycheck. And Vegas right now has the Falcons tied for the worst win total next season in all of football with the Houston Texans at 4.5 in a 17-game schedule. No team is worse. Falcons are tied for dead last. The other teams that are kind of close but not there. So Falcons at 4.5. You had the I just said the Texans at 4.5. The Seahawks are at 5.5. The Jets are at 5.5. The Panthers are at 5.5. And that's it. So there seems to be your competition. Even Jacksonville's at 6.5. Woof. So not expecting big things by the people who make a lot of money to predict these things. So and sorry, Terry, it's not personal. And honestly,
well, we don't have to say sorry. Because we're not sure what he means yet. That's what I wanted to ask. Terry Ocean Boy Martin comes in and appreciate the care react on Facebook. Terry.
Yeah.
Terry says no way rock bottom. So what would you have considered rock bottom for the Falcons as far as record goes? 2 years ago, 2020, what was it, 4-12? This change of 17 games has just totally messed me up. 4-12 record, would you consider that rock bottom? 7-10. I think 7-10 is a pipe dream personally for this year. So I think if you're looking on a line chart, it goes back down this year.
Yep.
And it shouldn't go down any farther. Then it should start ascending again. So that's what I call rock bottom. But are you thinking that they should have more than 7 wins? And we'll go through that here. But the Falcons open up with the New Orleans Saints, the Hoodats, right off the gate in Atlanta. And they split last year with the Saints. And the Saints are changing. A lot of familiar faces, but no Sean Payton, who engineered the most dominant, historically bad franchises. Sean Payton engineered a significant winning period for the Saints over the Falcons, and he's gone.
Yeah. Heck of a coach. We'll see if he's a future Dallas Cowboy coach. A lot of talk there, but this one will be in Atlanta. The Saints are a team that is definitely in a weird position. Are they going to go above 500? The NFC South, the weakness of the NFC South probably will help them a tad. But Jameis Winston was playing pretty well last year before he got injured. The thing that stands out for me about the Saints offensive line and the defense in general, I think I am a giant Cam Jordan fan. He's one of the better players in football at his position. Cam Jordan. I always get Cam Jordan and Jordan Cameron mixed up. He was a tight end for the Dolphins for a number of years. But Cam Jordan coming out of Cal. They also have a really good secondary. Marshawn Lattimore is probably one of the top 3 cornerbacks in football. They can get after the passer as well. I mean, they blanked Tom Brady last year, right? They went to Tampa Bay and shut them out. So this is still a really good defense in New Orleans. How good will the offense be? We'll find out. But I think this is a game that the Saints will probably win. And I think Vegas already has the line projections out for the first 2 weeks of the year, and I think the Saints were about 6-point favorites
in Atlanta. Wow, I'm picking the Saints here. That for all the reasons you just said, the Saints personnel is better. They're better in the trenches. Their quarterback, for whatever we happen to say about Jameis Winston, I did an article last year. Jameis Winston has a better career, and this is in Tampa, not even at New Orleans. Has a better career quarterback rating against the Falcons than like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes do for their career. So he plays like those guys when he plays against the Falcons. So Saints for me. The 2 USA Today guys both predicted wins. So moving on, the next week at Los Angeles Rams. This one shouldn't take long. Super Bowl champs on the road, loss.
Yep. Yeah, Rams are a good team.
I think you mentioned Vegas. I think of all of the Vegas spreads, this is the biggest spread in football right now.
Ooh, even bigger than at Tampa Bay.
I think it's the biggest spread in football was Falcons at Rams, was like 13.5
Okay, they
coming
probably
out
don't
of the
have
gate.
the Tampa Bay game out yet as well. And I was mistaken. Last year at the end, it was 6 points for the Saints. The last time they played, it's 3.5 for this week 1 matchup. So I just want to make sure I'm factually correct.
The schedule makers didn't do the Falcons much favor because then they travel to Seattle. So back-to-back West Coast trips, that's a lot of time in an airplane.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they probably just
I
stay
don't
over
see
there,
them
right?
going to Seattle and getting that win.
The real question here, Scott, is are you making the trick?
No.
No. All right, fine.
No, I don't go down.
No live show,
I don't go
guys.
down to Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the game. I watch all the games, but I like to be able to watch multiple games. And if you commit to going to a football game, you're committing your day. So between my kids and all their sports and the fact that I'm watching multiple games through the day, I don't go to games. I quit doing that a long time ago. When I could sit down on my big screen TV that I could get a big screen TV every week for the cost of the games, and I can watch 5 or 6 games, I don't go to one. I need to see too much of it.
Scott's just letting me down really easy here and doesn't want to say hello in Seattle, but that's fair. This is a game that actually I think the Falcons have a good chance to win. If it was at Atlanta, I'd give it to them. But with this matchup, man, I don't know. I have a hard time with this one. I'll give it to the Falcons.
Okay, I'm not keeping track, so you keep track of your wins. The road game, back-to-back road games, are licking their chops after getting their tails handed to them by the Rams. It's an 0-3 start.
Yep.
It's an 0-3 start for me. If this was at home, If this was at home, I would pick the Falcons. But I think the West Coast trip to Seattle is the difference for me. And Todd says the Falcons have been in a rebuild for the last 4 years. They haven't, though. That's the problem. Is Dimitrov thought he was going to make one last chance and put all that big money, front loaded all those contracts to the players and just killed the team with a salary cap. And Jeremy says, "Good morning. I'm in for the Long Forge." Yeah, me too. Buenos dias. All good. Hey, Dave. Terry comes in. This is a long one. So this year's team is already an upgrade from last year's roster. They're doing an amazing job. Bringing in talent and evaluating coaching. These guys are rebuilding, retooling. These things take 2 or 3 years. Yes, they do, no doubt. But they're getting things up to win now and are going to shock a lot of people this season. No way they're picking top 10 in the NFL draft. Hey, I love your enthusiasm. I do. I love your enthusiasm. I think my evaluation of this roster, where it stands right now, isn't as rosy as yours. I think they got a really bad roster with 8 legit NFL players on it, plus NFL players on it. And I thought they did an absolutely fantastic job to win 7 games last year.
Yeah.
But we'll go through it a little bit. I'm at
0-3.
Liquor with Lenore says ATL in the house. Well, good morning. Good morning, LWL. So I'm 0-3. Browns, week 4 at home.
I mean, is this going to be Deshaun Watson or is it going to be Baker Mayfield? Because that really could make a difference here. I mean,
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter for you.
Browns are better. The Browns are better in the trenches. I watch them bully teams all over the place. They're stronger in the trenches, better running game. They underachieved last year to go 8-9.
Yep.
So the only way that this matters is if this team has imploded because they couldn't get rid of Baker Mayfield and they're a 5-12 team next season.
Yeah.
But they should be competing for the playoffs again. And the Browns are going to come in and make Atlanta 0-4.
And let's put Marcus Mariota watch here just for his health, because Myles Garrett probably lining up a lot over Caleb McGarry. Oh, no. Man, Myles Garrett is unbelievable.
I mean, that's a game changer right there. Forget all these matchups, whatever. You just say Myles Garrett on Caleb McGarry. Okay, well, this one's over. There's a couple of strip sacks, a shutout, and Mariota running for his life. Do you protect Desmond Ridder at this point? But the Browns are a better team.
Yeah.
Again, they're probably middle of the pack in power rankings, and they're probably favored by 2.5 by Vegas right now going in. So I'm at 0-4.
1-3, baby.
Next week at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No,
this one's will be bad. Yeah, let's not a lot of analysis here. Tampa Bay brought everybody back. They're probably, I would say they're right now my bet for the Super Bowl. this upcoming season, just because the path of least resistance in the NFC and the NFC South as well. And Tom Brady, right? The Tom Brady effect. Is he going to retire? Wins the Super Bowl every other year. Probably going to be this one will be ugly.
I'm at 0-5. San Francisco 49ers come to Atlanta week 6. The 49ers were a whisker away from the They went to the Super Bowl last year.
No, they lost. The Rams won.
So, Rams won. Okay, yeah. I was like, but they were tight. That was a close game. They were a whisker away from the Super Bowl last year. They haven't gotten worse. And they're coming to Atlanta. Loss.
I'll disagree a tad. I think they have gotten worse, specifically on the offensive line. I think Mack is coming off a significant injury. They lost Laken Tomlinson. They lost Tom Compton. Mike McGlinchey's had an injury as well. I'm actually pretty concerned about that the 49ers offensive line on the whole this season. Also, you have the whole Deebo Samuel turmoil. You have Jimmy Garoppolo, which sounds like the locker room wants him to play, but they traded up to go get Trey Lance. So this is a team that I'm really interested in to see what happens with the 49ers.
So a little bit like the Browns. They've got the potential to be a playoff team, or they've got the potential to just completely implode.
Yeah, and I also think they overachieved last season. They weren't better than, on paper, they weren't better than the Cowboys. They beat them. Matchups make fights. They weren't better than the Buccaneers. I don't think they were better than the Rams or the Packers either, even though they beat the matchups makes fight. I understand. But
they were better than, and they throttled
the
Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
They throttled them. And the pass rush is going to be a problem again against a weak offensive line and Caleb McGarry at right tackle. It's a problem.
Nick Bosa.
They beat the hell out of the Atlanta Falcons last year.
This is a good team.
Weeks. I'm 0-6.
I'm 1-5.
All right. At Cincinnati Bengals.
Another team.
No. This team almost won the Super Bowl last year. You're going on the road, 8 hours up I-75 to Cincinnati. You're not winning there. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's the NFL. Never say completely no, but things can happen. And also things happening with Mark coming in with $20.
I know, it's going to perk up my spirits talking about this. And I honestly feel bad, but there's even my jaded, cynical, lifelong Atlanta sports fan self. I don't feel like these are unrealistic. Is there a game here where they've been favored? This isn't just being, you're a downer. This is, again, they've got predicted by Vegas to have the worst record in the NFL.
Yep.
So and Dean Worley has back-to-back wins over the 49ers and at Cincinnati. So and Mark makes me feel better. Makes me feel better buying some coffee. So thank you, Mark, with the big orange super.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Big help to the show, man. Thank you so much. He says, good morning. Good morning to you, sir.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule. Getting paired with the NFC West is definitely no favor. And the AFC North, I mean, the only way it would be worse is if it was the AFC West. So luckily you have 2 matchups against the Panthers coming up here. But Cincinnati, we talked about it last night on Building the Broncos. They're one of the 4 teams that received an A grade for their offseason. This is a team that maybe overachieved somewhat last year. They did beat the Chiefs twice, but I don't think like if they played 100 games against an average opponent, the Chiefs.
But they were a 10-7 team, and they got better. They're strong in the trenches, very good on offense across the board. Except their weakness goes against the Falcons' weakness. So their offensive line and pass protection won't be a problem. What will be a problem is trying to match up with all those skill players that they have for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, again, I said Casey Hayward's good. AJ Terrell is very good, but you still don't have any answers at safety. Unless Richie Grant steps up and makes a quantum leap, you're looking at journeyman at best level play at safety. Your defensive backs, Isaiah Oliver, hopefully he comes back and plays really well, and you're okay at the corner position. But no pass rush. Your defensive line is still Grady Jarrett, and God help us. It's just when you're bad in the trenches, it's hard to beat anybody.
Unless your quarterback's a god, but even then. So now we're on to the next week here, week 8 with the Carolina Panthers at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'm going to give them a W. I think this is a Falcons win. We got it, baby. And this is one where this is me being super cynical about it, but you are going to be competing with the Panthers for a quarterback this draft cycle. Every single win that you have against them maybe long-term can be considered loss. And I know divisional rival, blah, blah, blah. But if that's the difference between picking the third quarterback off the board and the first quarterback, that can change your team projection trajectory for the next 15 years. So obviously, at this point, we're talking about it's better to have the win. We got to win, yay! But Panthers are going to be competing for you up top there, and that would make me a little nervous.
I'm hoping. I like Arthur Smith. I do, and I'm thinking he gets at least 3 years. And because this is going to be when you trade away your quarterback, you're saying, okay, it's not on the coach anymore. This year is a
culture.
It's a mulligan. It's a mulligan season.
Don't lose the locker room.
Liquor with Lenore says, we have a tough schedule. At the most, I see another 7-win season. It all depends on how these rookies play and if they can become starters. Having a multitude of rookies as starters is a bad recipe in the NFL for wins. That's not this is how we're going to win games. But however, this is how we can build for the future. Adeniji, Tycon Graham, they were starters last year on defense. They weren't very good. Ogundeji, I'm getting all my guys confused. They're all they were starters. They weren't good starters. You don't want them starting. So, Drake London's going to be an upgrade over Russell Gage. I do believe that. Russell Gage was a good pro, but he's a good 3. At worst, Drake London should be a 2, a top 2 guy as a wide receiver, as a rookie. They're better. Doesn't mean they're good. That doesn't mean they're plus NFL starters. Let's see here. So I'm at 1-7 through week 9. Then we get the Chargers, week 9. LA Chargers coming to they get a long way to travel, but they will also be. There are also people talking about Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah, the Chargers are really good on paper. We'll see how it plays out. I am a big believer that Justin Herbert is a ascending, transcending quarterback. Good morning to Keith Robbins as well coming in. Cute picture of the little tyke there. Congrats to you as well. And Alberto coming in as well saying, good morning, fellas. Good morning to you, Alberto. Hope you're having a good Wednesday. Happy hump day. But I'm definitely taking the Chargers on this one. Their defense last year, especially their defensive line outside of Joey Bosa, was atrocious. And they went out there and attacked it hard. Khalil Mack, Austin Johnson, Sebastian Joseph Day. That should help them significantly this season. They also went out and got J.C. Jackson, a number 1 cornerback for them. So this is a very good Chargers team. Also, you weren't as high on the pick, but Zion Johnson further solidifies the offensive line, which is a team that's coming off of. You thought the Falcons' offensive line was bad last year. The Chargers' offensive line in 2020, the year that Justin Herbert broke all the rookie passing records, was the worst I've ever seen. It was. I can't even explain how bad it was. So this is a team that's really good on paper. I think the Chargers are very dangerous, and they should go in and handle the Falcons.
I'm Chargers. They're a better team, flat out. 1-9. Now we go to 10 at Carolina, week 10.
I'm gonna go Carolina in this one. I think you guys are gonna split.
I am too. I think you split with the Panthers.
Yep. And again, we talked about it earlier. That might sting on the surface, but would you rather, take your medicine? We talked about it, when we first started the show. This Falcons team, not a lot of good young talents. They're kind of going the wrong direction. Maybe you need to take a step back to take 3 steps forward. And losing to the Panthers here and having a bad season, probably better for you long term.
Week 11, Chicago Bears.
This is a tough one. This is one that I would say is a coin flip game. I'm going to give it to the Falcons here.
I am too, just because I think they can probably split these games with the Panthers and Bears.
Yep.
Home game, Bears at home. The Bears personnel moves have been questionable at best. It's like you draft your quarterback, you trade up to get him, and then you're not giving him any help. So I'm going to go with the Falcons on that one. So I got 2-9 after week 11. Week 12 at Washington.
I think Washington's defense is going to be too much. Overall, they still have a very, very, very talented front and 7. And Carson Wentz is not, while we disparage Carson Wentz, I don't think he's going to be worse than Taylor Heineke. So I'm going to go with the Commanders here in this game. If it was at Atlanta, I might be a little bit more leaning towards the Falcons, but on the road, going to go with the Commanders.
Yeah, and they blew this one against the Commanders last year. This is one of those games. It's like, oh, they totally blew this game. I'm like, you really don't understand how bad this Falcons team is to even be in this game. Yeah, they lost one. They also won 7 games that they may not, shoulda, coulda, woulda. But this is one they kind of threw away last year. At Washington, I'm going with I'll go with the Commies on this one as well. Steelers. The Steelers at home, week 13.
Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a team
Pittsburgh
with
always beats the hell out of the Falcons.
yeah. Still a good team. Mike Tomlin's still there. Pittsburgh might not make the playoffs this year again because their quarterback position is questionable in a conference that
and
is
I'll
just
tell you what, it'll feel like a home game for the Steelers.
Yep.
Lots of Midwest transplants. Not that Pittsburgh's. I still always kind of think of that Steel Belt, a whole area as Midwest. I was born in Akron, and Pittsburgh's just 2 hours that way. So I still kind of consider that all. Once you get into Philly, it's something else. But lots of transplants from that area. It will feel like a home game for the. It'll feel like a home game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Week 4 record bye week 14. They needed this. Good Lord, they needed this bye week 14. We go to week 15 at New Orleans Saints. Falcons won here last year. Good morning, Christos.
Yeah, I am going to go with the Saints here as well.
Me too. Yep. It was a little bit fluky that they got that win because then New Orleans came in when they needed it and just trounced the Falcons in Atlanta at the tail end of the season. So week 16 at Baltimore Ravens. Nope. You're not winning in Baltimore. Week 17, Arizona Cardinals. This one could be interesting. This one could be interesting. What are they playing for?
The Falcons?
The Cardinals.
Oh, yeah, the Cardinals. I think Cliff could be fired at this point. Falcons tend to fall off. There seems to be a lot of discordance in the Atlanta locker room right now with Kyler Murray. This is not a good
Arizona,
team.
but yeah.
I'm not a big fan of what the Cardinals are doing. Also, you get the Cardinals late. And we've seen the trends in the Cardinals with Kyler Murray. They look like a great team to start the year. And then the last third of the season, fall off a cliff. No pun intended.
No pun intended. No pun intended.
So I'm going to go with the Falcons on this one.
I will too. I think they've got a chance at this one. And we'll be complaining. Damn it! What are you winning this game for, you morons? You had the number 1 draft pick. This moved you up to 3. But I'm gonna put a dub on this one too. And then finally, week 18, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No.
I mean, yeah.
No, the only chance you've got is if Tampa Bay is already locked in their playoff seeding, and they've got absolutely nothing to play for in the resting starters. And even then, it's close because, as I said, there were 5 teams that had 2 players on the PFF top 25 under 25, and there were 2 that had 3 players. The Buccaneers were one of those 2 teams that had 3 players, Winfield, Wirfs, and White. Sounds like a law firm.
It really does.
The the tri-dubs. So yes, Tampa Bay finishes the season. How'd you do, Nick?
4-13, which is just under the Vegas win total there. You had 3, so
I had 3. I was 3-14. 3-14 for the season.
Yep.
And Terry says, Arthur, should you guys podcast material as motivation show the team how the non-football world views us? Pretty much in the football world, dude.
Yeah.
But it's not just us, Terry. That's the thing, is we actually gave them one more win than Vegas did. We gave them one more win than ESPN does on their power rankings. So they know, I promise you, they know what the outside world thinks about you. Now, I mentioned the USA Today Wire guys and their records. And again, it was, I don't know these guys, Dean Worley and Matt Urban. Dean Worley had the Falcons finishing 11-6, and Matt Urban had them finishing 8-9. Like I said, I think that's ambitious. Unfortunately, I'm going to be closer. I'm going to be closer at 3-14 than Dean's going to be closer at 11-6, and I think that does a disservice to what I think is a good project. I really do. By taking your wound now and getting rid of Matt Ryan, you set yourself up in 2023 to come back, to bounce back faster. You didn't even split that dead cap number. It's gone.
Yep.
So you're coming back. You're going to have Kyle Pitts, AJ Terrell, Drake London, hopefully. Nice building cores. Maybe Ebiketie comes out and becomes a really good edge rusher. Maybe. But what is for sure is you could come out of next year with a top 3 pick, get your franchise quarterback. And what's definite is you're going to have about $125 million at least in salary cap money. So if Terry Fontenot has done a really good job of getting adequate players for nothing. off the bargain bin. I would
Yep.
love to see him do that at $5 million a player. Go get plus players at $5 million a player and add 12 players next year. So I just think that that's the 11-6. I don't want people. I don't want Terry. Be warned. Don't take this out on Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot when they go 4-13, when they go 3-14. This roster is bad. It's bad. Yeah, don't take it out on the coaching staff and general manager. Give them one more year at least. I want Arthur Smith to have 3 years no matter what this season is.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you at all. And Terry also saying, it's all love, guys. Listen, every time I get a chance, let's go Falcons. And we're pulling for the Falcons too, but I've said it, for a year now. I think this Falcons team is, it was a year away from being a year away from being a year away. And they accelerated that process to the bottom by moving on from Matt Ryan, taking all the dead cap that's going to come off next year, which is what you want. There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than being in that pick range from, let's say, 8 to 16 perennially. You're not picking in the draft in an area where you can get yourself a franchise quarterback.
That's where the Hawks were. For you old heads, the Atlanta Hawks were in the 80s when I was coming of age. The Atlanta Hawks were a 50-win second round out every year. They were good, but never good enough, never bad enough, never good enough to win it, never bad enough to get that transcendent player, to push them over the top. To get that next guy in the lottery that pushed him over the top. Have one bad season and get Tim Duncan next and put him next to David Robinson.
Yep, 100%.
Kyle Smith. Was Kyle Smith a good move? Roth, appreciate you coming in. Commanders fan here. Think you guys getting Kyle Smith was a good move. We'll appreciate that. Thank you. Who's Kyle Smith? I don't remember Kyle Smith.
Kyle Smith for the Falcons. Vice president. He's a front office person. I think he's
there we go. I'm like, what's he play? Is he a guard that I don't remember? But thank you. Thank you for that. Again, I'm happy with the direction of the team. People want to point to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals had back-to-back years of about $150 million. They got a number one quarterback, and then they got a killer receiver. That was a 4-year process.
Yep.
They've started a little backwards with this, where they've got a couple really good receivers in years 1 and 2. Years 3, they'll have a ton of money and maybe get their quarterback. In year 4, they're competing.
Yep.
Year 4 in this process is 2024.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We've waited 50 years. We can wait 2 more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a question here before we get on out, because I know you have to run here soon. Keith Robbins asking, what quarterbacks fits us better in next year's draft? Comment here above Christos. How bad is
that one? Give me a time.
6:48.
48. There we go. Here we go, Keith.
So what quarterback fits the Falcons? I want to add the caveat here first that a year ago right now, mock drafts were saying Spencer Rattler first off the board and Sam Howell second off the board. Where are they at now? Sam Howell falls to the 5th round, which great pick. Hello to our Commanders fan in here. I think in the 5th round, that's a great pick for a young quarterback with arm talent and some toughness and athleticism. Even if he flames out, that's just a good calculated risk to take down there. And Spencer Rattler's transfers from Oklahoma to South Carolina, very twitchy player, good, can throw the off arm angles, but kind of sounds like he's not the best person. And also makes some dumb decisions. And also, not dumb decision, coming in late, though, that's okay, because we started earlier today. Ethan saying, got him late. Hey, everyone. Hey to you, Ethan. Hope you're well. Appreciate you and good morning. But what quarterbacks fit the Falcons? I really love CJ Stroud, but do you want a little bit more mobility and movement skills from the quarterback? That's
Bryce Young, round peg, round hole. Yep. If Arthur Smith's going to be your guy and you have the mobility, even if he isn't, Bryce Young is arm talent. The only thing you would like to see is you'd like him to be a little bigger, but I'm okay with that. He's over 6 feet tall, runs really well, throws on the run very well. Bryce Young would be my guy. And I'll watch CJ Stroud more this fall to see where he fits, but I know Bryce Young fits.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Bryce Young, I wish he was a little bit bigger. Take the pounding there, but is what it is. And Ethan coming in with 25 euros. God bless you. At the closer. Sorry, I missed the show. Sending some Falcons love. Yeah, Ethan, it's all good. We appreciate you a heck of a lot. Thank you for joining us on here. And what was the prediction? Scott had him going 3-14. I had him going 4-13. So it's a tough schedule too. That's the thing. You didn't get much of a break. Yeah,
it's a tough schedule. Your winnable games at home. again, Commanders. Commanders are a team that you could compete with. You're not going to be favored, but you're definitely not going to be favored on their own. Seahawks. It's a 6-hour flight, and then some. That's it's after you went to LA.
Yep.
Your
they
home
might just
games,
stay over there.
Steelers, Chargers. You're not better than those teams. It's gonna be tough. It is. So, like I said, I think that the rebuilding process can begin in earnest following this season with a big draft pick, and a ton of money, Like I said, the USA Today guys with 11-6 and 8-9. I don't want, and they will. I can tell this till I'm blue in the face. Falcons fans are going to be pissed when they're 3-14, and they're going to call, even if they're 6-10, they're going to be calling for Arthur Smith's head, and they don't need to. This is a roster that needs work. It needs work, and now they have set themselves up where they've got the money and the draft capital to do it, and I'm excited for the building process of this team.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're 100% right there. So just again, quarterbacks before we get on out of here. Everybody knows Bryce Young. Everybody knows CJ Stroud. A couple other names to keep an eye on. Will Levis at Kentucky. Tyler Van Dyke at Miami is another name to keep an eye on. And somebody out here near me that this is kind of a shot in the dark one, but Cameron Ward transferred from I think Houston Baptist to Washington State. And there's actually some buzz out here for him right now. It's like, oh, this guy's different, like the arm talent, the tools and whatnot. So keep an eye out for the Cougs this year with Ward as a very exciting young quarterback with a lot of talent as well.
On that note, we've got to get out of here. And I want to tell you where I'm going. I'm going over to Mile High Huddle right now to help produce Kim Becker's new show, Becker's Broncos Bites, for breakfast. It starts in 5 minutes. So want to get out of here. Want to thank Nick for getting up early. We will probably move this. This show does not have a permanent home yet. It may move to Mondays. Is something that we might think about doing too. So make sure you are liking, subscribing, so you get those notifications, following us on Twitter at Nick Kendall MHH, at Scout Kennedy, so that you can you make sure when we move around, you're fully aware, because this show is so much better with you in it. So we appreciate you being here. Until next time, Nick and I will see you tomorrow morning on Broncos for Breakfast, but head on over to Mile High Huddle. And that's it. Oh, Chris is in. So let's say goodbye. Says we just traded a 5th round next year, so we don't have much draft capital. The draft capital is the big number one. When you're talking about a top 5 pick, that's what I mean. Not necessarily as many players. You'll be able to have the money to get veteran free agents at $1 million, $2 million to load your whole freaking roster with, instead of projected starters. On that note, we got to get out of here. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.